Very good day to you all. And first of all, let me wish you a prosperous, happy Sinhala and Hindu New Year. So this is going to be your first session after the New Year vacation. And as we already noticed to you, we conduct this session, first part of this session as a recording aspect, and next week, that means 25th of April, we are going to conduct the rest of this session, that means last part of this session, in a physical mode. So I believe that you enjoy your holiday and New Year vacation, and you celebrate Sinhala and Hindu New Year festival. So let's get back to your studies. So since now we are coming to the end of your semester, we start your semester in February, and now we already completed 1.5 months, and you have another 3-4 weeks to complete. So then you are going to face your final examination. So before we are moving to the today's session, I wish to have some very brief recalling about what we discussed so far. That means past 1.5 months, what we have discussed with you, and then how we are going to connect your previous session with today's session, that is derivatives. Right, let me share the course outline for a moment, and then we will discuss it very briefly about what are the key things that we already shared with you. So your first session, we start with the international finance introduction. Under that, we discuss about the difference between international finance and domestic finance, and we explain with you regarding imperfections in the global market and how imperfections lead to international finance aspects. And then we discuss about the main concepts in international finance, and you already know all the things about arbitrage and market imperfections, etc. So then in chapter 2, you learn about, or you identify the foreign exchange rates. So that is a main component in international finance subject. So in here, we discuss about the foreign exchange rate quotes. Then under that, you discuss about the direct quotation, indirect quotation, cost exchange rate systems, etc. And then you learn about the exchange rate determinants. So then you identify how we are going to determine the price of a particular currency in terms of the other currency. So that very simply, it is based on the demand and supply of foreign currency or demand and supply of domestic currency. Now, for an example, if we quoted US dollar price as equal to Sri Lankan rupee 300, so now you know how that 300 is going to be decided. So it is based on the demand and supply of US dollars. So then also you know how this demand and supply going to be changed, basically based on the import and exports and foreign travels and loans and tourism income or tourism expenses, etc. Then you identify the equilibrium exchange rates, as I mentioned you earlier, based on the demand and supply. When the demand and supply getting equilibrium, getting equal, then you will get the foreign exchange rates, or the way we are going to rate particular currency's price in terms of another currency. Then exchange rate changes, you identify with the relative interest rates, relative inflation, and national income, political stability, etc. So these are the things you already identify or already explored through session number 2. Then in session number 3, we shared with you about how particular nations decide their exchange rates. That means how they are going to decide the price of particular currency, in terms of another currency. So that is what we call foreign exchange rate regimes or exchange rate regimes. So under that, you discuss about different regimes. We basically discuss about the fixed exchange rate system, then floating exchange rate system. Under the floating exchange rate system, we discuss about managed floating, dirty floating, and we also discussed about the emerging markets and regimes, and then we deal about the impossible trinity. So based on the impossible trinity, you know how countries are going to choose their foreign exchange regimes, whether they are going with the fixed exchange rate system or going with the floating exchange rate system or managed floating system. Then finally, you identified about regimes trade-off, how they are going to be changed in between that 3 points. Right, that mean monetary independent and political stability, as well as the flexibility of their economic activities. Likewise, you identify 3 points, and then you identify how country particularly decide their foreign exchange regimes. So then after that, you are coming into another important point in foreign exchange or international finance, that is foreign exchange markets. So market in the sense where we are going to trading, like where we can buy currencies and where we can sell currencies. So particularly you already discussed about in your session number 4 that there is no physical place for the market. So everything's are now happening in a virtual aspects. So foreign exchange market, we discuss under 4 different categories like spot market, forward market, futures, and currency option markets. So for spot market, you know the basic characteristics, and forward market, you know the basic characteristics, and how futures and currency options market are differentiated. Now you know the basics. So these things are very important as a student who are following international finance subject. You need to learn all the things. You need to understand the basic behind this foreign international finance. So then you need to know about the differences among those 4 different types of exchange markets. And under the spot market, you discuss about the domestic currency appreciation, domestic currency depreciation, and forward market, you discuss about the forward premium and forward discount. Then currency futures, you identify the key characteristics, and currency options, you know, it is a very unique market type where the buyers has right, not the obligation to sell or buy, do the transaction whatever he wants. So that kind of things you need to know. And some markets are not available in Sri Lanka. For an example, currency options we don't see in Sri Lankan context, because you know there are particular marketplaces available for currency options. So anyhow, you need to know about all these key points, key characteristics about foreign exchange market. Then under the session number 5 and 6, you discuss about the international parity condition. So under the international parity condition, this is a extent of the session number 2, that means foreign exchange equilibrium. So here we discuss about how currency prices are determined based on the interest rate, inflation, and what are their relationship, or how the inflation rate changes influence to their foreign exchange rate changes, and how inflation and interest rates moving impact to their foreign exchange rates. Then under that, you also discuss about the currency forecasting, foreign exchange or exchange rate forecasting. So then section number 7 and 8, you learn about another important part, what we call foreign exchange rates, foreign exchange risk or foreign exchange exposures. So here you understand that risk means the volatility of the foreign exchange rates. That means today US dollar price might be 300 rupees and tomorrow it might be 310 rupees. So that changes from today to tomorrow. That 10 rupee we call exchange rate risk, because we don't know whether it is happening or not, whether it is going to be increase or whether it is going to be decrease. So this is kind of volatility or changes in the exchange rate we call foreign exchange risk, because it might be having benefit as well as it might be having losses, because sometimes increasing exchange rate from today to tomorrow getting benefit to the traders, and sometimes decreasing foreign exchange rates in between today to tomorrow getting benefit to the traders. So we don't know. That is why we call it as a foreign exchange risk. So under that, you learn about the different type of foreign exchange risk, like translation risk, transaction risk, and economic risk. So in order to minimize the risk here, what you need to understand is we cannot eliminate risk, because it is impossible. Risk cannot be eliminated. Only you can do is to minimize the risk or manage the risk. So here, what we basically dealing with, how to minimize the foreign exchange risk. There are two types we can minimize. That is the hedging. Hedging is one particular insurance that we can go with foreign exchange risk minimization. So you learn about the hedging options. Maybe it's going to be forward spot market hedging and forward market hedging. For futures and currency options hedging, you learn under the session number 7 and 8. So aligned with the foreign exchange risk or exposure, we need to discuss about, we already identify about the speculation. So speculation means traders are expecting something will happen in future, and then they are going to react based on that expectation. For an example, if they assuming that in next month exchange rate going to be increased, then they react today. That means they are buying foreign currency today and keep it as the expectation is right. That means after 1 month, if the exchange rates are increasing, they immediately sell the foreign exchange, foreign currencies. So that is what we call speculation. So as traders' expectations are getting correct, then they earn profit. But unfortunately, if it is getting wrong, they ended up with the losses. Anyhow, speculation is very short-term benefit or losses, because if you are expecting that exchange rate going to be increased in future, then you buy foreign currencies today at a lower rate and expecting it to sell at a higher rate in future. So then today you are buying it. That means demand for foreign currency increasing. As a result of that, exchange rate automatically increasing. So then, as he expected, then the trader will sell the foreign currencies. Then the supply of foreign currency increases, because the market people are selling foreign currencies. As a result of that, the supply increase, then definitely exchange rate going to be decreased. So then the speculation benefit or losses, it can be seen for a very short term period. So this is a way of people are minimizing foreign exchange risk. So by taking that very short brief about what we discussed so far, up to 8 sessions, now you know what is international finance basically. So here we basically dealing with foreign exchange. Now, if you are dealing with the foreign exchange, it is definitely you have to face the risk. So here you understand about the hedging is one sort of mechanism you can use to minimize the foreign exchange risk. So today, session number 9, we are also discussing about one way of minimizing risk, that is we call derivatives. So here, the difference between hedging and derivatives, we will discuss come to the session. But in hedging, we try to minimize the risk by going for a forward contract or by going for a futures or option contracts. Here in the derivatives, what we are dealing is we are transferring the risk from one party to another party. So that is a difference. So let's discuss in more detail. So I took this 10 to 15 minutes to recall in your memory, because I know after having holidays and things, your memory is going to be completely vanished. And now it is time for you to refresh the things and back to the studies. Right. Let me go with the slide set for today. Right. Okay, so session number, I think it's 9. Yes, session number 9, it is going with the derivatives, and here you need to refer chapter 9 in your recommended textbook. So it is very important for you to refer the textbooks and work out with the exercises given in the textbooks, work out with the questions given in the textbooks, and read the cases given in the textbooks and understand the detail and get more detail about what we discuss in the session. Because in the session, we only discuss very fundamental things, but in detail, you need to refer your recommended textbook. It is must and it is compulsory. Okay, so therefore refer the relevant chapter when you are referring your slides and things. It is very important for you to get a more knowledge relating to the subject area. Right. Moving first with the learning objectives. Here what we are doing is first describe the different type of SAPs. And before that, we are going to describe about what is SAPs, what is derivatives, and why we are referring SAPs here, and explain how they can be used to manage foreign exchange risk, how this derivative is going to be used to minimize the risk, and what are the economic benefits of having those kind of derivatives. And finally, we are going to calculate some amount related with different types of derivatives. Right. Okay, let's see what is this foreign currency derivatives or simply derivatives. Here what we sought about derivatives to reduce the variability of expected future cash flows associated with variable borrowings and borrowing rates. That means here under the derivatives, we normally discuss about the risk associated with our borrowings. That means if you are going to invest for a treasury bonds and treasury bills, or if you are going to issue treasury bills and treasury bonds, that treasury bills and treasury bonds, you have to bear the interest rates. And when you are going to pay those interest rates, you might be having caught up with the foreign exchange risk. Now, for an example, if Sri Lankan trader going to buy treasury bonds from US market, then he has to face the volatility of exchange rate between Sri Lankan rupee and US dollar when he going to collect interest payments and maturity payments at the end of the bond agreement. So derivatives we are normally used to transferring that borrowing risk or borrowing rates risk from one party to another party. So derivatives, we normally have two types, that mean currency derivatives as well as interest rate derivatives. So derivatives basically including what we so called swap. So swap means we are transferring our things with another person to minimize the risk. And we will discuss about the swap in next slides onward. So derivatives, normally we are reducing the foreign exchange rate volatilities that we are going to face in future associated with our borrowings. Okay, or commercial purchases, sales transaction. So here what we are doing is we are transferring our commercial borrowings or commercial purchasing interest rates payments from one party to another party at a pre-agreed rates. Okay, so derivatives normally include interest rate swap, currency swap, and interest rate forward and future contracts, structured notes, as well as a credit default swaps. So these words might be confused you a little bit, but no worries. These are very simple concept behind all the things, right? So up to now, just understand that derivatives, we are transferring our commercial borrowings or commercial purchase sales transaction related risk from one party to another party. Okay, let's move in with what we so-called swap, because swaps are main part of the derivative. So swap is the concept that we are going to utilize for a derivatives. So swap mean very quite simple concept. What we actually do in swap mean, now for an example, the example given in here, if Mr. A has a commodity that he does not need, and also B has some commodity that he also doesn't need. But what Mr. A has is required for a B. And what Mr. B has also required for A. So then they can exchange their commodities. Right? Now, for an example, let's say something like this. Right? Now here we have two parties, A and B. Okay? So A has something that he doesn't need. Right? You also have something that you actually don't need, but you keep them. Right? Because there is no other option to sell or just take it off. Right? But you keep it. Okay? Likewise, A also has something that he doesn't need, but B also has something that also he doesn't need. But what A has actually required to B. Okay. Now what A has actually need for B. Okay. Now B needs something that where A already have it. A already has it. And B has something that he doesn't know, he doesn't need it, but A actually need that thing. Okay. That means both parties have something that they don't need themselves, but they are interested with others' goods or commodity. They are interested with others' goods. So assuming that they both parties doesn't know each other. Now they are from different provinces, right? A is in the western province and B is in the southern province. And they don't know each other. They don't know whether B has something that he requires and A has something that B requires. Okay. So only thing that they can do is they can exchange it. Now, what A has can exchange to B and what B has can exchange to A. Okay. So this is simply what we call swap. Right? Since they are not knowing each other, we need to have a middle party here. We need to have a middle party here where this A and B can be connected through this middle party. Okay, so that is very simply mean swap. That is what we call very simply swap. Okay, right. I hope that you understand what is simply mean swap. Okay, right. Now, swap refer to exchange of one financial instrument for another between the parties concerned. Here we dealing very simply about the commodity, but you know, derivatives, we are transferring the borrowing interest rates and things. Right? We are transferring borrowing cost. Okay. Therefore, swap refer to an exchange of one financial instrument for another between the parties concerned. Here we are making agreement to counterparties to exchange the sequence of cash flow. Here what we are exchanging is the borrowing cost. That means we are exchanging interest rates payment in a sequence manner. That means it might be monthly payment, or it might be quarterly payment, or it might be yearly payments. Right? So remember, we are exchanging financial instrument On what manner? We are exchanging sequence of cash flows. Okay. Therefore, SAP is an agreement to exchange cash flow at a pre-specified future time period for a certain specific rules. Okay. So that is what we simply call SAP. Okay. So we are exchanging financial instrument or our borrowing cost. We are exchanging sequence of cash flows at pre-specified future time period with a certain specific rules. Okay. Remember 4 characteristics in SAP. The SAP, we exchange financial instrument, maybe interest rates. Okay. And we are exchanging sequence of cash flows. It has to have a particular time period, and it paid until specific future time period as what we so-called forward contracts, and we have certain specific rules to follow. So this is what we so-called SAP. So finally, SAP allowed to reduce borrowing cost and increase the control over interest rate risk and foreign currency fluctuation. Okay, so what SAP or derivatives normally do is its control over interest rate risk. Right? When we are discussing with the examples, you will see how it finally control interest rate risk as well as foreign currency fluctuations. Okay, right. So what we discussed so far, we discussed about the derivatives, right? So derivatives simply mean we are transferring our risk involving with the commercial borrowings or commercial purchasing from one party to another party. So derivatives we can see under different types. So mainly we discuss about the interest rate swap and currency swap. So here what we discuss about the SAP mean, SAP we are transferring one things to another party at a pre-specified time period for a specific rules. So here what we are transferring mean, we are transferring financial instrument at a sequence of cash flows at a future specific time period with certain specific rules. When we are going with the SAPs, like interest rate SAPs and currency SAPs, what we are ultimately do is we are trying to reduce our borrowing cost as well as control over interest rate risk and foreign exchange fluctuations. Okay, so that is what we simply mean swap. Right. Moving on with the SAP. So SAP have had a major impact on the treasury functions, like that we call commercial borrowings, permitting firm to tap new capital market and to take future advantages of innovative product without an increasing in risk. So we discuss about this risk and things when we are discussing about the example. Through the SAPs, they can trade as perceived risk in one market or currency for a liability in another. That is what we are discussing under the currency swap. So SAP has led to refinement of risk management techniques. This is another part of risk management tool, which in turn has facilitated corporate involvement in international capital market. So SAP basically dealing with the capital market. That's why I call you is dealing with commercial borrowings like treasury bond, treasury bills, and stocks, etc. Okay, so that is how SAPs and hedgings are going to be different. Right. Without making that much of things, let's moving into one type of swap, that is interest rate swap. Okay, as we discussed earlier, derivatives we have different kind of types, right? Interest rate swap, currency swap, interest rate forward and future contracts, etc. So then we primarily discuss about swap. Then under the swap, we first discuss about interest rate swap. Okay, what is this interest rate swap? So interest rate swap is an agreement between two parties to exchange US dollar denominated interest payment, or that means foreign currency denominated interest payment for a specific maturity on amount against with the interest it calculated. Yes, I know definitely you don't understand what it says, right? That's natural. Okay, interest rate swap is an agreement between two parties to exchange what? To exchange foreign currency denominated interest payment. For simply, we can say US dollar interest payment. Okay, for a specific maturity, that is a specific period of time, and against with the interest calculated, that is a specific rule. So here we are dealing with the specific rule based on the interest calculated. Okay, so if you remember what we discussed in previously about SAP, okay, here we discuss about the swaps. Here SAPs referred to as exchange of one financial instrument. See here, we discuss about the interest rate to another party at a sequence of cash flow with a specific rule. Here, what we are dealing with interest rate swap, Here, what we are dealing with interest rate swap is we are exchanging interest rate payment denominated for a foreign currency, for an example, US dollar, for a specific maturity time period. You know, if you are issuing treasury bills, it might be after 3 months, you have to, it's going to be matured, right? Then you will receive your interest payment plus principal amount, okay, on an amount against with the interest is calculated. Now, what we are doing in here is, normally, you know, treasury bills are issuing at a fixed rate. You know, the treasury bills are issuing at a fixed rate. Then at the end of the 3 month or 6 month, you know exactly how much interest you are going to gain with your principal amount, right? So that is, you are having interest payment with the fixed rates, right? So in here, what we are doing in SAP is, we are going to transfer in that fixed interest rate payments to a floating interest rate payments, right? So one party who are receiving fixed interest rates, that party wishes to transfer in that fixed interest rate payment to floating interest rate payment. So that is simply what we are happening in interest rate swap. So interest rate swap, it is contractual agreement with two parties to exchange only interest payments. So you are exchanging only interest payment. Now you know there are two types of investors. One investor is a risk averse and other investor is a risk taker. Person who are taking risk always like to dealing with floating interest rates. And person who are risk averse, that means they are not very keen with the risk. They are always going with the fixed interest rates. So there are two parties, right? Some parties may receive fixed interest rate, but they are willing to have a floating interest rates. And some parties who are receiving floating interest rate, but they are actually willing to have fixed interest rates. So this is what we call Mr. A has something that he doesn't need, right? So A has fixed interest rates agreements, but he doesn't need it. He needs floating interest rates. And B has floating interest rate, but he expecting to have fixed interest rate. So then A has something he doesn't need, B has something he doesn't need. So then they can exchange their requirements. So this is what happening in swap. So interest rate swap mean they are exchanging their interest payment from floating to fixed, fixed to floating. And remember here, very importantly, we are not exchanging the principal amount. There is no room for exchanging principal amount. only we are exchanging interest payment from fixed to floating interest rate or floating to fixed interest rate. So normally this kind of interest rate swaps are happening less than a year and not more than 15 years. That means they can transfer in their interest payments from fixed to floating or floating to fixed less than 1 year maturity period and no more than 15 years maturity period, because it is no practical to go for this kind of risk minimization more than 15 years. So normally this kind of transaction flow within 2 years to 10 years period. That is treasury bonds and commercial papers maturity time period. Another important thing you need to understand is you have to go with the interest rate, what we are so-called interest rate here. It is we call London Interbank Offer Rate. I hope you remember these terms, London Interbank Offer Rate, that is we call LIBOR rate. So LIBOR rate is a rate where floating interest rates are calculating in international market, right? So that is pre-agreed interest rate among the international traders or international investors. Otherwise, Sri Lankan interest rate one thing, Japan interest rate another thing, and something like that. But when you are going with the international related transaction or commercial transactions, you have to adapt with London Interbank Offered Rate or LIBOR rate if you are going with the floating interest rates. Fixed interest rate you can decide, but for floating, you have to align with London Interbank Offer Rate. Right. Let's see some types of interest rate swaps, right? As I mentioned you earlier, interest rate you can transferring as a fixed to floating or floating to fixed. So this is happening in interest rate swap. So there are two main types of interest rate swaps. We call coupon swap and basic swap. So coupon swap means one party pays a fixed rate calculated a time period of trade, and they are going to transferring for a floating rate, fixed to floating. And also basic swap means both parties are exchanging interest payment based on the floating rates, but different rates. Floating rates can be different from one market to market, because even we are going with the LIBOR rate as a preliminary basis, you can exchange, you can change. That is why we call floating. Based on the economy, based on the economic activities, the interest rate can be definitely changed. Likewise, in Sri Lanka, we have highest interest rate, but Japan, they are having lowest interest rate. USA having another interest rate, but they have to go with one particular basis, that is we call LIBOR rate. From LIBOR rate, either you can go with LIBOR plus 0.5 interest rate or LIBOR minus 0.5 interest rate, something like that. So basic swaps, we are going for a changing exchange rate, changing interest payment based on the two different rates of floating interest rates. But coupon swap, we call, we are going for a fixed to floating or floating to fixed. But basis swap, we are going with the exchange of floating rates at different reference rates. Okay. Now let's look at the example. I believe that after discussing this example, you will get a very clear crystal idea about what is this interest rate swap and why people are moving to the interest rate swap and how they are getting benefit from interest rate swap.